train doors slide open, one by one, with a series of metallic crashes. Steam hisses into the cold air beneath the suffocating sky, and for a brief moment, there is silence. Then, confusion and lots of sudden movement. Thousands of exhausted, disorientated people spill out from the carriages. Men, women, and small children step down onto the frozen gravel, clutching what little they have left. Some whisper to one another, others scan the crowd for reassurance, while many simply stand still, trying desperately to understand where they are and what is about to happen. Uniformed guards pierce the silence, screaming orders in different languages. Dogs bark. The air is thick with confusion, fear, and something far more ominous. Their journey has ended, but their fate is about to be decided. They have arrived at Auschwitz-Birkenau, a place they do not yet understand, a place the rest of the world would struggle to understand. Then, through the disorder, a single figure begins to move with purpose. Standing on the platform, dressed immaculately in uniform, is a man who appears calm, composed, and almost clinical in his movements. With a simple wave of a stick, left or right, the man decides everything. He begins to separate his prisoners. Those deemed fit to work are sent one way. The elderly, the sick, and the very young are sent another. Families are divided in seconds. Decisions are made in moments. Fates are sealed. And the consequences are final. To those arriving, the man looks like a doctor, pristine and professional, a man of authority, someone they might even trust. He would smile, he would speak softly, and he would present himself as a man there to help. But that illusion did not last long, because for those who were separated from the crowd, for those who caught his attention, and for those who were chosen, what followed was not survival, it was something far worse. What happened inside Auschwitz was deliberate, structured, engineered. It was organised, systematic, and in the vast majority of cases, carried out in plain sight. Doctors recorded it, and officials approved it. One man, in particular, embraced it. This is the story of a doctor, and the story of how medicine, authority, and ideology combined to create one of the darkest chapters in human history, and how one man, standing tall and proud on a lone railway platform, became the gatekeeper between life and the terrifying possibilities that waited before it.
Hello and welcome to I Could Murder a Podcast. We are back. We have a brand new case. We're going somewhere we've never been before. And he's still with me. He's in there in his little shed. It's Ben Carter.
Wow, still here, still in the shed. Thank you so much for having me back. Much obliged. Oh, we've made it through the dark. Well, we haven't yet made it through the darkest series ever. We're about to. And bloody hell. Don't like this one. Don't like this one at all. How are we, Producer Dan?
Very good. Yeah, we've done it, boys. We've done 12 episodes of just pure darkness. And, well, this doesn't get any easier. You could be forgiven looking at the text on this, like just the headlines. You could, if you don't know about it, which is mad if you don't, but you could be forgiven. It's the start of just an absolute brutal horror movie or a horror novel. But this is very much a chapter in history, a huge chapter in history. And it did happen. And it was absolutely disgusting, beyond any sort of comprehension, what a human could do. Even a group of humans could do.
Yeah.
So this one's going to be...
a party of humans, you'd say.
Indeed.
Yeah. So this is going to be a tough one. But it's the end of the darkest series ever.
Yeah, I think the other thing I think we said before multiple times is sometimes when there's a bit of distance in the old time of how when the cases happened and occurred to us covering it, sometimes it can feel slightly easier. I don't know, it's a strange thing to say, but with Hinterkaifeck, that felt like a bit of a kind of mystery story. It didn't feel as close, but this one still holds, obviously it holds a lot of weight still, and it's still shocking. There's, I've seen numerous films covering the subject, and it's still, I still read certain things about this case and this time in history, and I'm shocked as much as I am the first time I read it. I know we've talked about being desensitized. I don't think you can be desensitized to this topic. It is truly horrific, and it's something that is, as we always say, is still very important to cover and keep in people's minds and not forget that this happened. But yes, Ben, without further ado, what is today's case?
So today we are here to discuss Josef Mengele, the Angel of Death, also referred to as the darkest doctor in history, the life and crimes of Dr. Josef Mengele, and the White Angel of Auschwitz. Yeah, as Tom and Dan both alluded to, an overwhelming thing to even believe happened, but it happened. And it's important to shine a light on these events in history. And I went to Auschwitz like 5 years ago, and it still didn't feel real, if that makes sense. I still couldn't comprehend that this could happen to a group of people. But it's very, very real. And even in doing the research, there are things that happen throughout this case that you just think, how on earth did anyone allow this to get so bad? And there were many, many hundreds of people that allowed it to happen. Despicable.
Yeah, I mean, this is a case, like you said, hundreds of people letting this happen, and there's a reason why they didn't make it public knowledge at the time that this was happening. Like, they knew that what they were doing was so evil, and people wouldn't believe in the kind of mission that they were set out to do. The fact that it was hidden just goes to say, 1,000 words in terms of why they weren't so public about it. But yeah, researching this case, again, as I said, it still hits as hard as it did the first time I read anything about this. There were still things I learned, which I think people will learn stuff about Auschwitz from what we covered today. And this guy we're going to be talking about, the Angel of Death, yeah, it goes beyond comprehension how evil he was, how much enjoyment he got out of things. I do think we'll go on to it, how he was moulded from quite an early age to view humans differently, but there's absolutely no excuse for what he would go on to become, and a very frustrating end, but we'll get on to that as well. But yes, let's get into it.
Josef Rudolf Mengele was born on the 16th of March 1911 in the town of Günzburg, which is in Bavaria, Germany. And yeah, for Tom's already referenced this, for those that have been with us since the Hinterkaifeck episode 6 weeks ago, it's about an hour's drive away from there. Mengele was the oldest of 3 boys born to Karl and Valberga Mengele, having 2 younger brothers, Alwa and Karl. The Mengele family were Catholic and took their religion extremely seriously, taking their young children to church every Sunday and ensuring that they lived their lives to the rule of the church. And yeah, mentioning Hinterkaifeck, Murder at the Farm episode, Mengele's father Karl was the founder of Karl Mengele & Son, which was a successful agricultural machinery production company that built tractors, plows and harvesters for farms all across Bavaria. And they were very good at what they did, apparently. Very, very wealthy family. The company expanded rapidly over the years, and during World War I, it would cease the production of agricultural machinery, instead producing military transport vehicles and technology that could, quote, deploy naval mines all across the English Channel.
I wasn't going to do an advert for
Mengele & Son?
Mengele & Son. I think that's a bit too far.
Yep, so Karl Mengele & Son, with the little... Is it umlauts with the 2 dots above an O? Is that an umlaut?
Umlaut.
Dan is the German expert here.
I'm not a German expert.
Yeah,
you have a German mum.
Yeah, I know. Umlaut.
Umlaut. Yes, it's
Yeah.
son.
Often making a vowel more forward.
See, half German.
Did sound a bit German, didn't I?
Explanation there, yeah.
Sorry about that, everybody.
So yeah, very, very successful business, Carl Mengele and Son, and they've been utilised when their countries called them for World War One. At this time, Mengele was just 4 years old when his country was at war, and his father was providing any assistance that he could. However, Germany's eventual defeat in the war would almost certainly have cast a long shadow over the Mengele household and had a significant impact on Carl's business in the process. This would also have a huge influence on the environment that Josef was raised in, as well as throughout his formative years. As a youngster, Mengele was described as quiet, reserved, focused, and incredibly intelligent. He performed well at school, developing a particular fondness for science at an early age. Outside of school, he was passionate about music and the arts, and would regularly go on family skiing holidays all over Europe. Here is where, Tom said he was moulded quite early on, and here is where his family's influence very steadily creeps in. In 1924, when Mengele was just 13 years old, he joined the Greater German Youth League, a right-wing nationalist youth group for children and teenagers across Bavaria.
Not the Bundesliga under 21s.
No. Don't know much, not got much to say back to that. Usually lots of goals. Over 2.5 goals. Six game acca. Another prominent group with similar motivations at the time was the more infamous Hitler Youth, with many other organisations sprouting up all over the country, hosting hundreds of thousands of young people, eventually surpassing 8 million members.
It's more than our cult.
That is just about, I think.
Different views.
Rapidly. Here, once again, Mengele excelled. He soon became one of the local group leaders and remained a key member for more than 6 years. He was considered extremely knowledgeable, handsome, charismatic, and a great teacher, all of this despite being so young. He left the group and also completed secondary school in 1930, aged 19, where he then made the decision to study medicine at the University of Munich. The following year, he joined, I might butcher this, but Dan, Der Stahlhelm Bunde Frontestaten.
Der Stalin Bunde Frontestaten. Oh, close actually. He actually did that last word better than I would do it.
Oh.
Do it again?
Frontestaten.
Yeah, that was it. Frontestaten.
The Stahlhelm Bunde Frontestaten, also referred to as the Steel Helmet League of Frontline Soldiers. I think their logo looks a bit scary.
Yeah, I'm going to look at it now.
Pretty sure. I think it's a helmet with some swords, maybe.
Can see a flag.
Yeah, I see the flag.
There's a helmet with
black and white.
Oh, yeah, it's just a sword, isn't it?
Yeah, with a little cross on it. Yeah, we don't like it.
It doesn't look scary.
Intimidating, no. Maybe it was early door nerves.
To be fair, there is something scary about a German helmet.
You don't have to...
Oh, I'm not just agreeing with it. I think there is something quite scary about that. Knowing what's happened, I think that's the point, knowing it.
Yeah, yes. Context. Yeah. So this group was slightly different. This was a nationalist veterans group made up of mostly former soldiers who were still stinging from the bitter defeat of World War I. Many of the group's founders and leaders felt that Germany had been humiliated by the defeat and therefore established this right-wing group in order to try and restore national pride. Once again, Mengele very quickly felt at home, became a key member, and seemed to gravitate towards the group's nationalist message. And yeah, as I said, the family were quite a well-to-do family, very wealthy. As he grew up into his early 20s, people did consider him quite a striking individual, very intelligent, very charismatic, and in every group he's been in, he's able to rise to the top quite quickly, which is kind of a pattern that would flow throughout the rest of his life.
Yeah, if he's going skiing everywhere, he must have a bit of... Always think of family that goes skiing a lot. They've got money.
Yeah.
Well, the ski pass alone is expensive, so...
There you go. So,
the more you know.
Over the next 5 years, Mengele would study at the University of Munich, the University of Bonn, and the University of Vienna, earning his PhD in the process. During this time, a number of things would happen locally and nationally that would shape his political and personal views, and Mengele was caught right in the middle of it. For 4 of those years, he studied under a doctor by the name of Theodor Mollison, and here is where things take a dark turn. Dr. Mollison was a biological anthropologist and was a very firm believer in something called biological racism. He believed passionately in the idea that you could essentially categorize human beings in different races and even determine their value based solely on their physical features. This ultimately fed into the idea of racial inferiority and racial superiority. Though that obviously sounds ridiculous, these ideas were being taken very seriously at the time, and with a growing belief, Mengele was one of the people who completely immersed himself in these new beliefs. He became extremely passionate about them. Under Dr. Mollison's supervision, he carried out various pieces of doctoral research, which included repeatedly measuring different jaw lines in an attempt to prove that a person's race could be identified by the length of their lower jaw alone. On top of this, back at the Mengele family home, Mengele's father and his business were still struggling with the impact of Germany's defeat in World War I. He decided to join two growing organisations in an attempt to form some kind of political career for himself: the Nazi Party and the Schutzstaffel, also known as the SS.
So this biological racism thing, they believed passionately, surprise, surprise, that the Germans were of superior race, or the superior race, and that's why they wanted to essentially have documentation and research to prove this theory. And they believed that, before even doing this, they believed that their message was the right message. And again, this would sort of seep into the rest of the case.
This fascinates me, how intelligent human beings are, really intelligent, the stuff that we can do and create and design and whatever. But then this sort of stuff always just how fucking dumb, biased, racist humans can be as well. And it's kind of no different nowadays. But it fascinates me how stupid the human race can be.
Talking about a stupid human race. When I was young, I was in a band called the Shelf Stackers. And without realising it, if you're trying to do a logo, you're going to use the S's. And I didn't realise, but our logo back in the day literally was the same curvy S. And I didn't know. And no one, I made them pink and white. But no one ever pointed it out to me. Even like my mum, who would have seen it on things. She must have thought, he's just trying to be rebellious. No, not if I knew that.
Do you still have a picture of that somewhere?
There'll be somewhere,
I can't picture it in my head.
Yeah. But no one ever said anything about it. And I was like... So
See? Stupid.
Yeah, exactly, stupid. Ignorant, if anything. Some great tunes though, some fucking great tunes. The Fish and Chimps EP was,
Fish and Chimps.
Just a picture of a monkey holding a fish. Back to the case. In January of 1937, now 26, Mengele decided to take things a step further. His curiosity and his research took him to the city of Frankfurt and started studying under a doctor by the name of Ottmar Freiherr von Virchow. This was at the Institute of Hereditary Biology and Racial Hygiene, one of many institutes the Germans used to approach eugenics at the time. If Dr. Mollison had introduced Mengele to these beliefs, Dr. Virchow was the one to significantly escalate them. Dr. Virchow was a geneticist with a very specific and very unsettling area of focus: twins. Basil. He believed that by studying twins, especially if they were identical, he could unlock certain genetic secrets and eventually prove that biological racism was legitimate if it could be evidence that certain racial characteristics had been passed down through generations. Once again, Mengele threw himself into this role, with his specific area of focus being twins with ranging physical conditions. He spent months studying twins and adult twins with cleft palates, cleft lips and cleft chins, amongst other things. He was absolutely fascinated and totally committed to the beliefs within biological racism. Dr. Virchow described him as reliable, intelligent, and someone who could clearly explain even the most complex ideas. His research and work ethic would earn him a doctorate in medicine later that same year, and Josef Mengele was now a qualified doctor, which did not go unnoticed. He took on permanent employment at the Institute in 1938, and it was in this role that he was expected to take these studies and theories out of the classroom and into the real world. Disturbingly, part of his new position gave him the task and the authority to conduct racial heritage assessments on individuals applying for what was known as Aryan certification. This was a document that determined whether or not someone was considered to be racially pure enough to work for the state, or even simply to be recognised as a German citizen. That is madness, and absolutely horrifying.
Yeah, giving one man that much power already, and then also the fact that he's able to... what's he doing here to deem them acceptable? Is he measuring their fucking jawline? Is he... What is he... I couldn't believe this when I read it.
And also at this point, do you think the moral compass is gone? Or is it because he's in this world already, he thinks this is the right thing, this is the So his moral compass is aligned to being correct here.
It felt very much as though these intellectuals and doctors and scientists believed that, that did believe passionately about, biological racism, is that they wanted a racially pure and racially more powerful Germany than the rest of the world. And I don't know, I'm not, hopefully maybe there's some people in the comments that might know more than me. I'm sure there will be many, but I don't know if this is a reactionary thing from World War I, or if this was going on long before then. I don't know. But it seems as though there was so much pride hurt by the defeat in World War I and the Treaty of Versailles and everything there, that all these ideas are now coming out, how to prevent something like that from happening again.
I think the Germans would say, hat dan Kool-Aid getrunken. He drank the Kool-Aid, essentially, with the way the Nazi Party were going in their beliefs. There wasn't another word for Kool-Aid. But,
No, there wouldn't be.
hat dan Kool-Aid getrunken.
Yeah, that's very good.
Vaguely threatening.
Probably quite very sour or bitter Kool-Aid, I'd imagine. It is said that Dr. Mengele took great pride in performing these assessments and was especially strict and especially thorough. It seems as though Mengele wasn't just studying these ideas anymore, he was actively applying them.
Always apply yourself at school.
Not if it's these kind of things, said Dan. For God's sake, not these kind of things.
During this same time period, Mengele followed in his father's footsteps by becoming a member of both the Nazi Party as well as the SS, fully aligning himself with their regime. By now, he was recognised by other members as a promising young doctor who was entirely dedicated, driven, and ahead of his time. As part of this, he completed basic training for the German Mountain Light Infantry, which is obviously quite commonly referred to as Gebirgsjäger. The following year, in 1939, Mengele married a young lady by the name of Irene Schonbein, who he had met during a residency in the city of Leipzig. The couple would go on to have a son together 5 years later, who they named Rolf. But the world would change drastically before then. When World War II broke out, Mengele was immediately called up for national service. But rather than fighting on the front lines, he volunteered to be a medical officer within the SS. Initially, the role was still classroom-based, with lots of administrative detail. He would now start conducting racial heritage assessments on individuals to determine whether or not they were racially suitable under the new Nazi ideology. It's speculated that any borderline or rejected candidates were hurriedly sent straight to the front lines, while others were subjected to, what could be argued, a far more sinister fate. However, Mengele would not remain in this position for long, and was eventually sent to the Eastern Front to serve as a field doctor within an SS division. It is here that he would witness the horrifying reality of war firsthand. He observed the mayhem caused to ordinary civilians. He witnessed his unit commander being killed by sniper fire, and he saw the brutal treatment of Jewish communities as Nazi forces advanced into the Soviet Union. Though he did not see combat, he did save 2 soldiers from a burning tank and developed lasting battlefield trauma from what he endured. For his actions, Mengele was awarded numerous medals for bravery, including the Iron Cross. But in 1942, he was seriously wounded behind the front lines in Rostov and deemed unfit for active duty. As a result of the injury, he would often walk with the aid of a cane or walking stick after this. From here, a decision was made to reassign Mengele, and this new assignment would put him in charge of people in a setting where science and cruelty were intertwined. A role where history would remember his name forever, but for all the wrong reasons. And it is here we move on to the timeline of Josef Mengele, the Angel of Death. Early 1940s. At this point in history, much of Europe was embroiled in World War II, with the rest of the world watching on. Germany occupied a vast portion of Europe, whilst Allied forces were mobilising elsewhere. Millions of soldiers had already been killed. Hundreds of cities were left in ruins as a result of numerous bombing campaigns, and millions of innocent civilians were being violently displaced all over the continent. The Nazi racial policy was being put into practice on a major scale across occupied Europe. Not only in hospitals or universities, but in entire systems that targeted communities based on the exact ideas that Mengele had been studying for many years. By 1943, at just 32 years old, Mengele was encouraged by his former mentor, Dr. Verschuer, to apply for the position of chief physician at a place known as Auschwitz-Birkenau, a position he was quickly accepted for. Over the previous decade, the Nazis had constructed a network of quote-unquote labour camps and military prisons all over different parts of occupied Europe. Some had been legitimately designed to house imprisoned political opponents and prisoners of war. Some were alleged to have been legitimate labour camps, whilst others were designed and manipulated to become facilities that could exterminate entire communities.
That is crazy.
This rapid expansion formed a vital part of what Adolf Hitler and his regime would refer to as the final solution. His ultimate coordinated plan to eradicate not only Germany's but Europe's entire Jewish population. Just 4 years earlier, Hitler stated the following during a public speech at the Reichstag building.
At the time of my struggle for power, it was in the first instance the Jewish people who only greeted with laughter my prophecies that I would someday take over the leadership of the state and of the entire people of Germany, and then, among other things, also bring the Jewish problem to its solution. I believe that this hollow laughter of Jewry in Germany has already stuck in its throat. I want today to be a prophet again. If international finance Jewry inside and outside Europe should succeed in plunging the nations once more into a world war, the result will be not the Bolshevization of the earth and thereby the victory of Jewry, but the annihilation of the Jewish race in Europe.
How that doesn't actually sound that mad if you listen to things that Trump says now.
This is it.
Trump has said far worse than that.
He's tweeted worse than that.
Yeah.
As a doctor. Fuck off, you. If Hitler had AI. Though expert opinions vary, modern research estimates that the Nazis established at least 44,000 different camps and prisons across Europe between 1933 and 1945. This week's episode focuses on just one of those, Auschwitz-Birkenau, located in southern Poland. Mengele first arrived there, stepping into this bleak secret world in May of 1943. In arriving at Auschwitz, Mengele would have very quickly become aware of the sheer scale of his new surroundings. Arbeit macht frei, work sets you free, hung above the entrance. Multiple layers of heavily guarded perimeters, almost endless rows of barracks, and hundreds of thousands of prisoners, with many thousands more arriving on a daily basis. Mengele did not see the extreme suffering and death that other human beings would see. Instead, he saw opportunity. His role as chief physician gave him almost completely unrestricted access to the entire camp. But he was not there to provide care or support to the prisoners or even the guards. Instead, he viewed this as a perfect environment to continue the research he had been obsessed with for almost 2 decades. However, here he answered to no real authority and was not confined by any real accountability. His quote-unquote patients had already lost their identity, their dignity and their freedom, and many would soon lose their lives.
Yeah, what's coming next is absolutely staggering, and just it's very difficult to make it seem real, which we will do our very best to do. But we've covered a couple of cases before on the website, Unit 731 and the Holmesburg prison experiments, where very similar circumstances have occurred. They've got individuals isolated to an area, they cannot escape, they're not held to any accountability or oversight, and progressively now it almost seemed as though they were looking for different ways to, as Dan said at the start, the line between cruelty and science just vanished almost immediately once you step foot in that area. And this is just one of 44,000.
I was going to say 44,000 different camps and prisons. Can I just give you a quick question? How many prisons do you think are in the UK? Off the top of your head.
I'd say there's probably around 200.
750.
142 prisons.
Wait a sec, let me finish. 130.
Obviously, different time, different size country, blah-de-blah-de-blah. But the difference in that, 44,000 camps and prisons across Europe just for this this party. It's just crazy.
And just the fact, as I said, like, how it was still such a secret. Or it could be one of those things where, people heard rumours and didn't want to believe it and thought, that kind of thing. Obviously, in the era of where news would travel via letter and whatnot, it's not going to, be as widespread. But yeah, the numbers are staggering. It's very hard to fathom. Like, even doing the research for this, I double checked some stats, and because I was like, surely by that stage, I was like, millions of people had already died in the early 40s. I was like, and I looked at it, and yeah, easily millions and millions. And I was like, it's hard to fathom. Obviously, it's a world war, so it's like, it's not two countries going at it. It's, it's multiple nations. But yeah, it is absolutely staggering when you look at the stats of World War II, let alone the horrific things that happen in these camps.
This is it. In doing the research for this, almost every documentary out there on different things about World War II or about Mengele or different camps, because we're talking today just about Auschwitz, but there are other camps, historians would argue did even worse committed even worse atrocities. But in every video you find people that are Holocaust deniers, and I've really struggled to put my head in that perspective. They claim scientific research can disprove all of this happened and this was all propaganda, but the physical evidence and survivor evidence alone, I mean, we're going to talk about some of it here. I was overwhelmed. I know people have different opinions and you're completely free to express your opinion, but I could not put my mind in the perspective of a Holocaust denier. I don't understand it. I don't understand what you're trying to prove, what message you're trying to send, why you're denying it. There's so much proof out there that this did happen on a huge scale.
This is it. I mean, I'm the same. You see any kind of comment section is rife with deniers, and it's, like you said, Ben, it's completely unbelievable that it's even they have the audacity to do this and even believe it. And also, it is a sign of the times, because, I mean, it does go back, actually, Holocaust deniers, but it just, everything recently, in recent times, seems to be disputed and disbelieved, and I feel like society's falling apart at the moment with that, because everything's a conspiracy, everything's not true, hasn't happened, prove it, all that kind of energy. I find it strange.
Or this has been claimed to happen in order for this to happen. Justification, or there's a smokescreen for this, and yada yada yada. There's different agendas, and I think people are right to question things, but some things are just like, and obviously freedom of speech, but sometimes freedom of speech, you can just be like, mate, like, are you just saying this to get a reaction? You're saying just the most offensive thing you could possibly say to get a reaction, to be that guy. Like, walk around Auschwitz and tell us that's, it's I know what I mean. It's like, people feel so strongly about this, but in the opposite way. Like, this is, I could only see this topic creating a strong sense and strong feeling and emotional impact on the way of, how could this happen? Not, oh, this is all fake. Like, how can your mind be there? But yeah, it's, like Dan said, it's the sign of the times, as Harry Styles also said.
He did, yeah, he did.
Saw not Hail Mary last night, and that song's in it, and I cried my eyes out watching that film. Really good.
Oh, wow.
Really good film.
It's the sign of the times.
Mm-hmm.
Gotta get away from me.
Summer of 1943, the first signs of Mengele's evil capabilities would become clear within just his first few weeks at Auschwitz. He would begin many of his days by patrolling the camp together with his team and visiting the hospital barracks. Once inside, he would approach each prisoner's bed, perform a very brief assessment on them from a distance, then make a decision on whether or not the individual deserved to live. If the prisoner had been in the hospital and had not recovered or returned to work duties within a fortnight, Mengele would instruct the officers present to take that individual to the gas chambers immediately. On some occasions, he wouldn't even allow for a few days for the sick or injured prisoner to begin the recovery process. He would simply order them to be taken to the gas chambers. The same fate would be sealed for any women who were pregnant when arriving at Auschwitz, or if they fell pregnant by choice or not during their time at Auschwitz. This dynamic was made even more atrocious given the fact that Nazis had ordered for the establishment of numerous Sonderbauten and Puff commandos.
So the Nazis used the word Sonderbauten to describe special constructions in the camp, whilst Puff commandos was a term used by prisoners to describe brothel commands. Heinrich Himmler ordered them to be established in multiple concentration camps in order to, quote, increase productivity among privileged prisoners, many of whom were often German. More than 34,000 girls and women were trafficked and raped at these sites, mostly by German soldiers and Nazi police, with many of them falling pregnant as a result. According to Dr. Gisela Perl, so Dr. Gisela Perl was a prisoner with an extensive medical background who was appointed the camp gynecologist by German guards. She would state that the greatest crime in Auschwitz was to be pregnant. Dr. Perl, who was one of 5 prisoners chosen to form a prisoner medical team by Mengele, would often go out of her way to hide pregnancies or perform discreet abortions inside the camp in order to try and save the mother's life. Heartbreakingly, many pregnant women were caught. It is not clear specifically how many times Mengele gave this order, but best estimates from historians based on Mengele's time at the camp, as well as the frequency of his visits to the hospital barracks, suggest that many thousands of completely innocent men, women, boys and girls may have been sent to their deaths this way alone. One Auschwitz survivor, known only as Miss B, who was held in a female-only barracks, recalled the following interactions with Mengele.
In Auschwitz, there was a belief among the female prisoners that the soup we were given to eat was drugged, and the drug was the reason why we suffered from this horrific rash they would study. In the morning and throughout the night, we were lined up approximately for 2 hours for roll call. During this time, Dr. Mengele came once or twice a week, and he pulled out the weak and the sick from the line, and they were never seen again. It was necessary to make sure that our entire bodies were covered so that Dr. Mengele would not see even one sore, otherwise our life would be over. That is just terrifying.
Yeah, we've got a few different survivor accounts coming up here, and all of them are obviously completely inhumane experiences, but yeah. And all these prisoners were looking out for one another. You know, they'd help to make sure, you know, rashes or cuts or sores were covered. If any pregnant women were there, they would try their best to ensure that was covered up as well and that they were not showing. Horrendous. And he'd unannounced do this throughout all of the night. Freezing cold temperatures, confined in little barracks. Horrendous. So at this point, we haven't even talked about the conditions inside the camp. The reality of life inside Auschwitz was nothing short of unimaginable. Prisoners were crammed into overcrowded barracks, forced to sleep side by side on splintered wooden bunks, with barely enough room to breathe, let alone rest. Prisoners were subjected to endless hours of hard labor, and many that could not cope with the workload or the conditions were murdered on the spot. So many people were being killed so quickly that mass graves could no longer suffice, and crematoriums were established. Disease spread like wildfire. Typhus, dysentery, and infection regularly tore through the camps unchecked, with no real medical care in sight. The winters were brutal, with temperatures reaching as low as minus 25 degrees Celsius during the night. Many prisoners were left with nothing more than thin, tattered clothing to shield them from the elements. Food was scarce, starvation was constant, and their lives had become a daily struggle built around survival on scraps. I mean, as you heard in that last quote as well, many of the prisoners believed that the food was tainted intentionally so that they could experiment and analyze the outcomes. As well as this, there was also the smell. A suffocating, ever-present reminder of death that lingered in the air and clung to everything. Fear was also constant. Their identity had already been stripped away, their heads were shaved and their names were replaced with numbers. Humanity had been totally reduced piece by piece until almost nothing remained. And according to one survivor, life in Auschwitz was a rapid disintegration of mind and body. I mean, when we went there 5 years ago, it was my dad, my brother and I, and it was like February or March sort of time, so it wasn't peak winter. I think we're coming into spring, and it was freezing cold, and we had multiple layers on. And my dad had always said to us, even as children, he'd always, one of his big things in life, he wanted to go to Auschwitz and have a good cry, was the way he always phrased it to us. So we went there, And the really jarring thing I found was there were people there with like selfie sticks, taking pictures on their phone and stuff like that. I found that really, and there were like couples holding hands and hugging and kissing and stuff. I found that all really, really jarring. My dad's a pretty strong person. Like, don't often see him too emotional. But there's a particular part of the tour where you end up going into a room, which is, I believe it was a barracks converted into a museum, which is just one glass wall and then just children's shoes.
Yeah.
And the pile of them is... Again, I've been there and it still didn't feel real. I can't really put it into words. But yeah, he lost it in that room.
I do want to visit at some point. It's a hard one because it's like, as we discussed at the beginning of the episode, these stories should never ever be forgotten. And in some cases, you could argue these places do need to be visited, like you did, Ben, to see or to feel the echoes of the horror that happened there. But like you said, when it becomes, I don't know, tourism. A bit of a tourist, yeah, a reason for tourism, that's when it's like, that's really upsetting to me because, yeah, you shouldn't go there to prove to people that you've been, like taking selfies and pictures and stuff. You're going there to learn about history and to think about what's happened. That's it.
I think they're very like, it's only certain companies that do it, and you're given a tour guide and you put headphones on and you follow this tour guide who's giving the, you know, who's recounting what went on. And my dad was next to her the whole time asking all the extra questions and things like that. And but there were other people drifting off, doing their own thing, taking photos, selfie sticks, filming. And I'm not sure if they've changed it since then and there's kind of, you know, rules around that, but it made me feel so uncomfortable.
Yeah, I think a no camera rule at those places. You didn't need pictures of those places. Like, there's plenty of pictures online, and you're there to learn about it, be educated, pay your respects. That's it. Yeah. In my opinion, I think that's the way it should be. Like I said, I don't think it's right to not allow people to go there, but it's having certain things to keep the respect held there when you're there. Yeah, I think it's an interesting one.
So another key part of Mengele's routine was selection. This process would be conducted on tens of thousands of individuals who arrived at Auschwitz from all over Europe on a daily basis. Within just a few seconds of their arrival, their fate would be sealed. Mengele, as well as other officers, would pace up and down the ramps of Auschwitz, what they referred to as the selection ramps. Here, entire families would be separated, and anybody deemed solely on appearance to be unfit for labour was immediately sent to the gas chambers. The remainder were admitted into Auschwitz. Those sent to their deaths would more often than not be young children, pregnant women, the elderly, or anyone deemed to look unhealthy. Apparently, even the most hardened of Nazi officers found this particular part of their role challenging, stressful, and unpleasant. But not Mengele. According to accounts, it appears as though he very much enjoyed it. He paced the ramps in his pristine uniform, his slick-back dark hair, and his long leather gloves, his eyes often looking beyond the horizon. Surviving prisoners would even report that he walked up and down the ramps whilst whistling a tune and strutting, occasionally singling out a prisoner and smiling at them. So this element that he appeared to thrive on, the selection process, choosing whether someone lived or died, is said to have coined him the nickname the Angel of Death. Mengele would specifically search for twins in the large crowds, supposedly in order to continue with his quote-unquote research, eventually hiring assistants to help him scout out twins or any relatives that looked slightly alike. When each train arrived, his assistants would scan through the large crowd, often shouting Zwilling, which means twins, and segregating them from the rest. Mengele and his team are believed to have experimented on approximately 1,500 pairs of twins, the majority of whom were children and many of whom were murdered. Out of the thousands involved, only around 200 to 300 twins would survive. Compared to other inmates of Auschwitz, any twins that were picked out during selection were occasionally allowed to keep their own clothes, their hair, and were also spared from hard labour and immediate selection for the gas chambers, which earned them the disturbing label Mengele's children, with the doctor even occasionally introducing himself to them as Uncle Mengele. So word started to spread that twins were given better living conditions in Auschwitz, so much so that some brothers and sisters would even falsely claim to be twins in order to try and boost their chances of survival. However, once Mengele had completed his research on them, he would hand the children some brown sugar and sweets before sending them to the gas chambers. Some of these twins would be infants and babies, and there's a survivor, Susan Pollock. There's quite an infamous YouTube video of her sitting down and doing an interview in English, and she talked of her interaction with Mengele, which we'll play for you now.
And the selection came, the selection by Dr. Mengele. And that is what we were there for in that barrack. We were all children. Nobody gave me a tattooed number because we were indispensable. We knew that there is a gas chamber. We could smell it. We could see the smoke. I knew that people are burnt in there. I had no more feelings left. Feelings that one has in normal life to say, oh, that would be, could I hope to have that, or wouldn't it be wonderful? These feelings didn't exist anymore. It was just wiped out from me. Any normal love didn't exist anymore. It was just fear, and even fear, it was just nothing. It was just total apathy. And yet, with all that, when I was, I think, twice or three times selected by Mengele, I used to pinch my cheeks, wanting to look sort of reasonably rosy. I used to pinch my cheeks. I was bare and stark naked, together with all the other girls. And again, in a mass of girls who were walking in front of him. And there he sat in a chair. He was rather a dark man, and he looked quite handsome, actually. He was the only human being who was there in the camp, who resembled normality to me. And there he sat with his stick in his hand, and he moved that from right to left, and I knew that meant either life or death.
You knew that?
I knew that.
So another thing, we're now going to move on to some of the experiments that were, quote-unquote experiments that were conducted, and there were different testimonies given that Mengele, throughout different times at Auschwitz, he would send what he termed as specimens to colleagues back in Germany, and these often were internal organs, body parts. Some researchers have suggested, or some historians have suggested, he also had hundreds of individual eyes that had been preserved and placed on his wall in his laboratory. Hundreds of human eyes. He had a big fascination on eyes.
With a slight movement of the stick he was holding, left or right, Mengele, standing high on the selection ramp, would seal the fates of hundreds of thousands of prisoners over the next 2 years. He became so fond of the selection process that he would even attend the ramp on his days off, specifically looking for twins or looking to find any prisoners with a medical background to assist in his research. If he wasn't found on the selection ramp, he could be found observing or supervising the administration of Zyklon B, the cyanide used in the gas chambers. Each day, certain individuals were picked out specifically for a range of experiments. One former prisoner and survivor of Auschwitz, known only as Mr. G, stated the following on his ordeal after having been selected by Mengele.
This is one that is, to me, it's not the worst one, but this is fucking mental what they do here.
Me and a Jewish American were subjected to medical experiments. SS German shepherd dogs, belonging to the commander of the SS, had a special poison placed on their teeth. We had to run, and the dogs had to chase us. Afterwards,
They examined our wounds and our blood. A doctor ripped the flesh off my legs and examined it. After some time, I was able to escape. First to a peasant in a village, afterwards to a friend of mine in Krakow. There, my wounded legs started healing. As a result of this experiment, the dog bite and poison, my whole left foot was ripped apart, and during the course of the years, I developed wounds and cancer.
I mean, that to me was the part I mentioned where it just almost felt like they were making up different ways to create fear and torture people, essentially. Because why the need? I mean, injecting poison into an individual is terrible in itself, but why bring a dog chasing you into it and applying it that way? Why not just directly inject them?
Yeah, you can't even claim that's a scientific experiment. It's just it's just a torture device, as you said.
Another survivor, also picked up by Mengele, known only as Miss G, recalled the following. Each day, I was submerged in hot water. Whenever I tried to put my head out of the water in order to breathe, I was forced back into the water by Dr. Josef Mengele's stick. He was always enjoying himself. This lasted for 10 minutes. I was immediately afterwards put into freezing cold water, and the same procedure was repeated. There were 5 people, including myself, undergoing the same process. After these daily sessions, we were taken back to barrack number 8, Auschwitz, which was destined for those who were going to die, to see how long we were going to survive. A woman passing by saw me gesturing and crying for help through a hole in a plank of the wooden barrack. She loosened the plank and wrapped me. I was saved. I know nothing about the fate of the other 4 people.
I think everything I like to say, like with this, it's obviously we're at the absolute depths of human depravity with what the Nazis were doing to these people, but they're absolutely brave. People saving people giving their households to them, hiding people. Like, you have the absolute, as I said, depths of people and the absolute best of people. At the same time, people who are willing to save and put their life at risk in order to help people as well.
Definitely. Like, the focus is obviously on these evil people that were doing this day in, day out, but you forget that there were hundreds of thousands of millions of people that knew this was wrong at the time and perhaps didn't know the extent of what was happening, but were still doing everything they could to hide and to help and to fight this machine.
And yeah, like, not all Nazis were German and not all Germans were Nazis. Like, there were German people helping Jews and helping other people from, it's so easily people just tie everyone with the same brush and go, oh, well, obviously they came from there, but it's a very ignorant way of looking at it.
And also, like you said, Tom, there is no scientific knowledge to be gained out of any of this.
No.
Being submerged in hot water and then being submerged into cold water and repeating that throughout the day it's just to them a sport, like, or a torture device, something to do, something different to do. It's just horrible.
I mentioned Unit 731. Dan, was it you? We did the Minnesota on that? Or did I do it with Tom?
I think we did it, yeah.
There were different body parts were frozen and then left to thaw out or put over fire immediately afterwards. So there were elements of this, that were also going on in extreme levels over in Unit 731. And we're only going off, by the way, quotes of survivors and things that have been, passed on through generations to what individuals experienced. But there will also be other things that happened in all of the, 44,000 camps? In all of these camps that were not reported or were not survived. Other incidents of unrelenting torture and abuse without any need for any scientific justification attached to it. It's terrifying.
Mengele and his growing team would conduct a series of other horrifying experiments on prisoners they had selected. More often than not, they were conducted without any anaesthetic, and were always conducted without any consent. This typically resulted in severe or prolonged pain, the contraction of different diseases, the loss of limbs, blindness, or immediate death. These were conducted on men and women of varying ages, as well as young children and even newborn babies. At one point, it is believed that these experiments resulted in a typhus outbreak in one of the women's camps. After being informed of the situation, Mengele made the decision to send 600 Jewish women to the gas chambers to be murdered overnight.
He was not present to oversee this, but he made sure that he was present to supervise the disinfection of the chambers the following day. Over the course of the next 2 years, whilst similar experiments were not halted despite the significant typhus outbreak, there were other outbreaks of measles, scarlet fever, noma, which is a rapid gangrenous infection of the mouth and face, and other diseases, all of which were solved with the same outcome: the gas chamber. But not before Mengele could study and experiment with different potential remedies to the diseases. For fuck's sake, it's just so... People already battling with these horrible diseases and pain and infection, and he's using it as a chance to treat them. But he did this on men, women, children and babies. Thousands more were marched to their death, whilst many others were isolated in separate barracks to slowly die from the disease. On an occasion when Mengele believed he had found an effective treatment or a cure to the disease, he did not apply it to the individual. Instead, he withdrew treatment, noted his findings, and left the individual to gradually die.
What is that, Dr. Zof? Hippocratic?
Yeah.
Surely he has a... I mean, he's obviously far beyond that by now. But does he not have a duty of care? I mean, he's found the cure, and we're far beyond the Hippocratic Oath. We're far beyond that. He's abandoned that the second he stepped foot there. But even that, like, he's found a cure through them, but decided to, stop giving them that, let them die. Slow and painful deaths as well from these diseases. No.
Senior officials of the Nazi Party felt that Mengele and his team had handled the outbreak so well that he was awarded the War Merit Cross and given a promotion. Yeah, handled it so well. He, killing all those hundreds of people, without a second thought. Then, given a War Merit Cross for that. War hero. He was completely untouchable and free to do whatever he pleased. One survivor, known only as Miss N, recalled the following on her path crossing with Mengele. I suffered immense pain and cruelty from the experiments. 5 weeks in Auschwitz alone, separated from my family, my parents, 2 sisters and 2 brothers, when Dr. Mengele pulled me out of a queue. I was the only one picked that day personally by Mengele and his assistant. They took me to his laboratory, where I met other children. They were screaming from pain. Black and blue bodies covered with blood. I collapsed from horror and terror and fainted. A bucket of cold water was thrown on me to revive me. As soon as I stood up, I was whipped with a leather whip, which broke my flesh. Told the whipping was a sample of what I would receive if I did not follow instructions and orders. I was used as a guinea pig for medical experiments. I was never ever given painkillers or anaesthetics. I suffered excruciating pain. I was injected with drugs and chemicals. My body most of the time was connected to tubes which inserted some drugs into my body. Many days I was tied up for hours. Some days they made cuts into my body and left the wounds open for them to study. Most of the time there was nothing to eat. Every day my body was numb with pain. There was no more skin left in my body for them to put injections or tubes. One day we woke up and the place was empty. We were left with open infected wounds and no food. We were all half dead with no energy or life left in us. Eventually Mengele decided to set up his own research facility in one of the Romani family camps. He once again focused his attention on twins, but also took up a particular interest in individuals with any kind of physical abnormality. People with heterochromia, people with glasses, and people with dwarfism. He would now order the conducting of various blood experiments. Consisted of his teams regularly drawing large amounts of blood from twins and transfusing it from one twin to another. He also ordered significant amounts of blood to be drawn from more than 200 different racially diverse prisoners, so that he could study their blood protein levels, suggesting that each race would have a different protein level. Many simply would not recover from the amount of blood that was drawn from them. As well as this, twins would be intentionally infected with tuberculosis or typhus, or other diseases in order to see how they would react and to observe if there were any differences in symptoms and treatment between the twins. Unsurprisingly, many sets of twins, or many individuals of a set of twins, would soon die from these experiments, or become so unwell that they would inevitably be sent to the gas chamber. In an account that is sometimes met with skepticism, surviving witness Vera Alexander claimed that she observed Mengele sewing 2 twins together, back to back, to see if they would both survive. This quote-unquote surgery resulted in gangrene, and both twins apparently died. If one twin died during experimentation, Mengele frequently ordered the other to be murdered immediately so that a comparative autopsy could be performed. So that's quite an infamous experiment that gets cited, but yeah, a lot of skepticism is made of whether or not it did happen. But to be honest, from everything else that happens within those walls, it wouldn't surprise me whatsoever. But
Yeah, agreed.
That's it as well. I mean, everything you've just listed that he was doing to twins, if one of them suddenly dropped dead, the other one knew that their life was over, and obviously lost their brother or sister in the process. There's no humanity here whatsoever. That's immediately stripped away. So if an individual with heterochromia was discovered arriving at Auschwitz, Mengele and his team would continuously experiment on them. And this is heterochromia when they have different coloured eyes. Various chemicals would be injected directly into the eyes of the prisoner in an attempt to change their eye colours, allegedly both to blue. Obviously, that's the more classically pure Aryan image, the blue eyes, blonde hair. This would result in multiple infections, severe pain, and permanent blindness in many of those who were experimented on. Though just like the twins being allegedly sewn back to back, this claim has also been disputed. Mengele would also handpick men, women, and even young children from the selection ramp and use them for surgery and autopsy research. Once again, without any sedation, multiple unnecessary surgeries, amputations, organ removals, and castrations were performed on the individual before they were exposed to the elements. If they did not die from their wounds or from blood loss or infection, they would be deemed unfit to work and therefore sent to the gas chambers. Any individuals that somehow managed to survive would suffer lasting physical and emotional trauma. Other claims that have been challenged include suggestions that Mengele connected the urinary tract of a 7-year-old girl to her own colon, and that he attempted to, quote, make boys into girls and girls into boys by using cross transfusions and reproductive surgical experiments. Which again, although that's been heavily challenged over time, everything else we've gone through, it wouldn't be a significant surprise. However, it is believed that Mengele and other Nazi doctors were regularly involved in attempts to control or eliminate reproduction in the camps, especially among those they deemed undesirable, frequently performing forced sterilizations, and yet again they would do this without any anesthesia. And I'm sure I heard as well that this would be back in we mentioned his racial purity tests and the Aryan certification that he would, even before World War II broke out, I read that he would, if there was any people that they would deem undesirable, we use that word just there, undesirable, even before this, he would push for the sterilization to keep Germans, a pure, racially strong race. Anyone that didn't meet that standard, he would attempt to refer them to sterilization surgery. So, yeah, this happening in the camp would not be at all surprising. Many male and female, both adult and child survivors spoke about various small incisions being made to their arms, wrists, and the palm of their hands. And this was very much intentional to study how basically these cuts that are often in places where the arm moves or the hand, there's lots of movement in the hand, they would then study the healing process of that.
My thought process. I'll just enlighten you to my thought process right now. And it's strange because I remember having this when I learned about this in history class back in school. Is when we're reading through this, it's so abhorrent and so disconnected from what a human should be able to do. It's so crazy and so out there that my brain almost processes it as like fiction. When I'm reading, I'm like, this is just a horror story. This is like I mentioned at the start of the episode, it feels like a horror story, and then I have to snap myself almost out of it, going, no, this actually happened. This is real life. These are millions of victims suffering and being murdered and being used for experiments. And then I suddenly get even more angry about, like we mentioned, the deniers and people going, yeah, this didn't happen or only happened because of this. So, like you said, Tom, justification. I keep going through these waves of like crazy different sort of how my brain responds to this information.
I think that's also like it's a way your brain's trying to protect you in a way. Sometimes I think with this, especially with us covering so many cases, it is sometimes your brain thinking, putting you in the position where this is a story. It's not
like it can't be real.
Yeah. This is completely unfathomable, and it's like it's easier to think that this is a story, but sadly, it's just fucking abhorrent.
Mm.
If you just happen to be born in a particular time, in a particular place, like our grandparents' age, this was likely the life that you'd experience. All these children and babies that were brought into the world at a time when much of Europe was occupied. If you were born into a Jewish family, I was there and it didn't feel real. I know I've said that like 3 times. It's still, my mind could not process it. And I think that's some of the things that these doctors and scientists have done to people, and all the other people that were complicit in these actions.
And also the fact, nobody deserved this, obviously, but it's the categorization that the Nazis were doing here, and young children and babies were almost like priority to be murdered, because I presume they saw them as a cost to their process or their procedures or something.
So going back to these small incisions that would be made over the palms of the hands and the wrists and the arms, these would be done obviously intentionally and repeatedly, and then they would observe the recovery process and put different ointments on their injuries, and then a week later, 2 weeks later, reopen the exact same wound and try another remedy, quote unquote remedy. These incisions would be made intentionally with tools that were not sterilized, and multiple people would be cut with the very same blade. The doctors would then cover the incisions with various ointments and bandages, studying different healing responses. And over the days and the weeks that followed, each time that the cut was about to heal, the doctors would reopen the wounds and start the process once again from the beginning, this time applying different creams or liquids directly to the injury. If the individual became unwell, developed an infection, or could no longer move their arms and hands adequately enough to work, they were sent to the gas chamber. This happened to thousands of innocent people. Most historians estimate that in less than 5 years, approximately 1.1 million people were murdered at Auschwitz. While the true number can never be known, historians believe that Josef Mengele was personally involved in, or at the very least had ordered, the deaths of tens of thousands of men, women, and children. And the one figure I saw was at least 40,000, him personally being responsible for, but I mean, from everything we've gone through, I think it will be far higher than that. The trains continued to arrive day after day, and the system never slowed down. The gas chambers very rarely stood idle, and they worked from morning until night. Crematorium fires burned almost constantly, their chimneys pushing thick black smoke up into the sky. And when the ovens could no longer keep up, mass graves were ordered to be dug, filled, and covered, only for the process to begin again and again. The grounds of Auschwitz itself became saturated with death. Ash fell like dust across the camp, settling on barracks, on fences, and on the very people still waiting in line. And the suffocating stench of burning flesh did not drift away, it constantly lingered. Eventually, by the end of 1944, the entire Romani section of the camp was quote-unquote liquidated, with any remaining prisoners, some of whom had somehow managed to survive for months or even years in Auschwitz, being murdered on the spot. And there's a particular part on this tour at Auschwitz where there's a brick wall, and you can still see kind of the bullet lines from a shooting range etched into the brick. Very early the following year, as an Allied forces' victory started to emerge as the likely outcome, Mengele is believed to have murdered 14 twins in one night, and he did this by himself. He first injected them with hexobarbital to force them to sleep, and then he injected cyanide directly into their hearts.
And this man is a doctor, a man that's been awarded numerous war Heroes and war medals and
decorated veteran. Hero. Fucking monster.
1945. By the time the war was approaching an end, and the world was slowly moving closer to uncovering what had truly been hidden inside places like Auschwitz, Dr. Josef Mengele, the Angel of Death, was already preparing to disappear, to become a ghost that would haunt the world through its crimes and testimonies of surviving victims. As the Soviet army closed in on Auschwitz, records were quickly destroyed and those responsible began to disappear. Mengele fled the camp, first moving west through a series of collapsing Nazi positions as the war drew to its final conclusion. By the summer of 1945, Nazi Germany had totally fallen. Millions were dead, thousands of camps had been liberated, and the scale of what had really happened was beginning to emerge. But Mengele still did not face any justice. Though he was captured briefly by American forces, he was not recognised by them and was eventually released. From there, he went back into hiding, living under false names, working as a carpenter and a farmhand, relying on a network of Nazi sympathisers and former SS members who helped him remain undetected. In 1949, he escaped Europe entirely, travelling through Italy using forged Red Cross papers before sailing to Argentina.
So there's so much to him going into hiding, his escape, his relocation, him going into hiding again, because he had I guess you could say a battlefield background to some extent. He had officers' uniforms as well as his doctor's uniform as well. He basically pretended to be a light infantryman and move around into these different camps, and therefore he would face less scrutiny as a prisoner of war if he likely was captured. And because he could not be identified by the Americans when they found him, usually they would have a certain tattoo, and he did not have his. They allowed him to go free, and then he's moved, like many did at the time, to South America, changed his name to Jose Mengele, and he actually ended up marrying his dead brother's widow.
Oh,
yeah.
This is also makes your blood boil, because it's not even him going down with his ship. It's him. I mean, the Nazis have fallen, the war is over, and it's him going, oh fuck, I better get out of here. If he's so true to his experiments and wanting to do good, stay put, own it. But running away.
It's running away to, erase a culture that he so much despises. He thinks is inferior to him, and he's going there and living his life out, and it's... Yeah, that's the thing I said at the very top of the episode. I was like, it's a horrific case and a very frustrating end, and obviously we'll get to the end, but like it's like you said, fucking yeah, I don't know. It really angered me learning about well, all of this did, but the fact that not justice wasn't really served.
I ignorantly assumed he would have been caught and killed, or killed himself, and no, it's quite a different outcome, and it's infuriating.
In South America, he would spend the rest of his life in fear and on the run. At first, he lived relatively openly, working, forming relationships, and even boldly reconnecting with his family. But as Nazi hunters began to close in, Mengele became increasingly paranoid. He fled to Argentina, to Paraguay, and then to Brazil, constantly changing identities, constantly relying on those willing to hide him. For decades, he somehow managed to evade capture. While survivors bravely told their stories, and while the world attempted to process the staggering horrors of Auschwitz, Josef Mengele remained free. However, in 1979, at the age of 67, he suffered a stroke while swimming off the coast of Brazil and drowned. He was buried under a false name, and it would take years before investigators finally confirmed that the man known as the Angel of Death had died quietly, anonymously, and without ever facing trial for the many unthinkable crimes he had committed.
Yeah, that's it. It's quite a picturesque way to pass away, if anything.
Yeah.
Coast of Brazil. Just hope that he suffered when he was dying, to be honest. But it's the fact that he basically got away with it. able to go out and live his life in a beautiful part of the world as well, and just incredibly frustrating that no justice was he met no justice.
That's the infuriating thing as well, him running away. And yeah, fair enough, for the most part he probably lived in fear, but he must have got to a point in his life where he thought, this is it, I've done it. I'm fairly safe now where I am. And then, yeah, like you said, Tom, just had a nice picturesque death. Died of natural causes. It's infuriating.
Yeah.
He was living in this posh little resort on the coast, went out for a swim, which I've heard as well, not to get too bleak, I mean, it's at the end of a very bleak episode. I've heard that it's quite a peaceful way to die, drowning, compared to what he put hundreds of thousands of people through. He's got everything on his own terms.
I've heard of breaststroke, but not stroke.
But yeah, absolute piece of shit. And then he had to basically still didn't believe it was him for many, many years, and they had to exhume his body to do a DNA check and eventually prove that it was in fact him.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, very dark case. It's one that we've actually spoke about doing this case, for a while actually. But this series definitely felt suitable for it.
Yeah, when reading about this case, I came across a quote, and it could be famous. I think I've heard it before, but it's very fitting. But it's, monsters don't live under your bed, they live among us. This is quite fitting. This quote's quite fitting for this, because it's just, monsters aren't in the spooky corners of your environment. They literally, they're there right in front of you, and it's just a scary thought that humans can do this.
That's the terrifying thing. If we try and process this as a true crime case, as we ordinarily would, there's not a lot in his early life. There's no significant traumas, very wealthy family, caring parents, no significant issue in his life that seemed to be a turning point. He just seemed to be given complete power and influenced by lots of people with certain beliefs in his life, which I guess you could apply that to lots of people that eventually became involved in the Nazi party. But there's no, I can't think of any specific huge moment in his life where you're that's why he went bad. That's why he went like that. That's why he chose that path. It just seems to be he's given a position of complete authority, no one to answer to, no one looking at what he's doing. He's claiming his findings are advancing science and advancing healthcare. I can't find one significant turning point.
I think sometimes, though, it could be simple as, I think science can ask difficult questions, and the experiments that the original doctor met, finding if there was any biological differences between people, can be deemed obviously very problematic, but also there can be scientific purpose in looking at different people and different things. Him learning that and then going down that route, and then obviously there's a lot darker turns that happen whilst he's still studying that, and it starts looking at inferior races and things like that, and trying to get a pure race. And I also think as well, he's then put in a position of power, and he just seems to be I can do whatever I want. And I think he just honestly seemed to really thrive off being able to play God. Angel Death Row fitting it. He could pick what happens to these people. He could do whatever he wanted. He could claim that it's for scientific purposes. He could think, my old doctor would be so proud of everything I'm doing. And I think even his old doctors would shudder at the thought of what he actually would go on to do.
And I think ultimately, I won't go too deep into this, I think this is why one person in the world of politics can be so dangerous to society. In this case, Hitler. But it really shows how devastating certain views can be and can evolve over time.
And I think it's going to be led by fear, and people can be put in positions and change their views completely because of fear of not wanting to be taken out of positions. Yeah, we won't go into it, but obviously I'm sure most people know kind of roughly what we're talking about there. But a particularly difficult case, but yeah, one that we wanted to cover. You may have noticed that at the start of this, usually episode 12 we'll be saying, the finale of this series. We haven't said that. We're actually doing 13 episodes of this series, and we are going to end it on a lighter note. It's going to be slightly lighter. We can have a bit more fun. We thought we'd put you guys through the ringer. We've been through the ringer ourselves with this series, and we really appreciate all the support, all the lovely words you guys have said, and all the support you've shown us. But we want to do a slightly lighter episode to end the series. So 13 for series 13. So excited to share that with you guys. It's going to be, we can just kind of take a bit of a deep breath and have a little bit of fun with it comparatively to what we had to do through this.
And can I just say just a big thank you to everybody, all our listeners and viewers, the new people and the OGs who have come with us on this journey, because it has been tough. It's been difficult for all of us. Ben especially, writing it must have absolutely wrecked your brain at times. And it's been a chapter in our history, but it's nonetheless, it's been, like we've always said, these stories do need to be told. They are fascinating. They are brutal. But thanks for coming along with us on this journey. We really, really appreciate it. And here's to many more less dark stuff.
Yeah. So the curtain falls on the darkest series ever. I think in hindsight, it was, I do miss classic ICMAP cases. So maybe All at Once was a bad idea, but at the same time, it's been so important to tell those different stories. I was going to ask you boys just quickly, now that all 12 of quote unquote the darkest series ever cases are done, is there one that you still, I mean, I know the one we've just done now is very, very fresh, but is there one that stands out to you as the one that you found the most challenging, horrifying? Is there a case that stands out to you throughout the 12 or
I think, I mean, you have to, this one would have to be, the sheer amount of people and deaths, but like Dan said early on, you kind of read it as a story. Like one that, I mean, one bit that really got me was the Victoria Columbier case. And there's just the fact that the pictures of her smiling and the accounts of her still being smiley and after everything she went through really got me. Like, obviously in the episode, I got a bit emotional about it. But I think, this case itself is just by the sheer number and brutality. And as you said, sometimes you can read a number and it doesn't really hit. But when you think, we said Mengele, like, that's a whole football stadium of people he's just killed. Like, once you start thinking of the actual numbers and what they are, and the reasons before the deaths and the way that they were killed and experimented on, I mean, yeah, it's hard to look past that as well.
Yeah, I think you're right, Tom. I mean, this case is in a whole different world of its own in terms of true crime and brutality and scale. It's abhorrent. I think for me, cases like Victoria Columbier and Jeannie Wiley are just so upsetting.
Yeah.
One that comes to mind is Sagar Mahara, and the brutality of that is it's just one of those cases that is staggering beyond belief.
I think even with that one, there's just the fact that we hadn't heard anything about it.
Yeah.
It's one of those where obviously some of the cases you've heard of before, and it's the cases that are really, really dark when you've never heard of them. You're like, geez, like how many are out there you've never heard of?
That's true. I think the two that really stand out to me are two different ones, and one of them is the Chandrasekhar one that Tom brought to our attention, and I just could not believe that, and that there are truly horrifying moments in that. There's truly horrifying moments in all of them. And then, although it feels like a world ago that we sat down and wrote it, the Peter Scully episode, there are elements of that that still seriously bother me, because the research for that was a world I did not really know existed. And yeah, but it's done. The darkest series ever is done. We've got some really exciting plans for the new series, which we are going to go away and work on. We can't wait to share a bit more about that, but very excited about it.
But it's not done. We've still got episode 13.
Of course, yes. Yeah, please tune in next week, please.
Yeah.
No one gets hurt next week, or do they? Who knows?
Yeah, it'll be a little light end to the episode in the series. And like we said, guys, I mean, it has been a series where we've introduced a new segment, the decompression session, where we have a little chat. Try a little light in the mood at the end of the episode, and a little reward for anyone who's made it this far. And if you want to get involved, you can leave us a comment over at our group on Facebook, I Could Murder a Podcast, Listeners and True Crime Discussion Group, or send us an email at hello@icmap.co.uk. With decompressing session in the title ideally, and just give you a fun question, any like kind of silly question, just something a bit lighthearted that we can sink our teeth into and have a bit of a fun chat. It's basically what we've been going for. And another little thing we've been doing in these, I've been basically using the joint account and getting some people involved with some decompressing sessions as well, asking us questions. This one's slightly different. It's more of a kind of tips of how to maybe, especially after this case, maybe it works well, how to unwind.
This was a really expensive one, wasn't it?
How much?
Who is it going to be?
Yes, it's little tips of how to unwind, and I think you guys, true crime fans. Well, let's get into it.
Hello, Tom, Ben, and Dan. I'm going to need all three of you to have a seat right over there, and not for the reasons you may be thinking, but I'll get to that in a moment. Guys, Chris Hansen here, True Blue streaming crime network, Takedown with Chris Hansen, To Catch a Predator, all the rest. Now, to the important part. The reason why I want you to take a seat is because it's important from time to time to get away from and relax because of the dark material we cover. The lurid places we go to bring people stories, to give them the experience of living these crimes and these activities in real time, taking them inside the commission of a felony, as we do with the Takedown Predator series. But here are my 3 rules about getting away from it all and cleansing the mind and body. Number 1, relax. You can see I've just come back from the trainer. An hour of heavy physical activity. I try to get 10 to 15,000 steps in a day. Easy in New York City, more difficult when we're out on a sting operation someplace, but I try. Every hotel has a gym. 2, you need to check out every once in a while, whether you go to a restaurant and sit by yourself and have a hamburger or a couple oysters, whatever it is. Play some tennis, ski down a mountain. 3, stay connected to your family and spend some time with them, not talking about anything you do at work. Just hang out, go to a ball game, whatever it is you like to do. Those are my 3 rules. Maybe some of them will be helpful to you. Anyway, good luck with the podcast. I'll be listening. I'll see you on the TV. True Blue is the streaming crime network where the Takedown episodes go, as well as some other great investigative reporting. My podcasts are Predators I've Caught and Have a Seat with Chris Hansen. Try not to be Ian up. Just want you to listen to them. All right, guys, take care.
And that's why he's a professional. He knows, every moment's a marketing opportunity. But yeah, thank you, Chris. We did have the pleasure of meeting Chris at CrimeCon, which I did say in the message, by the way. I did mention that we met, but I chose not to mention that. Yeah, there's some tips there. Some good tips there, I think, as well.
Yeah. Healthy life, happy life. Yeah.
I wonder if he's doing any content anywhere. But yeah, it's the good advice. Not take it home. Try and do something unwind, physical activity. I think all of it makes a lot of sense. I'm not going to have oysters, but
No.
Can I say as well, when we did meet him at CrimeCon, he seemed like he was in a really great place and gave off a very friendly and positive vibe, and so did his wife. They were lovely people, gave us all the time of the day, and
we could put a picture we can pop up, haven't we?
I'll pop it
Yeah,
up.
got a picture.
There you go.
But really really nice. Good energy, it was refreshing.
Tom, that was a great way to finish this episode and this series. And we're not finished yet, but I thank you so much for that, because I'm a big fan of the old Chris. Big fan of the old stings as well. Can't get enough stings at the moment. But great advice. So thank you so much, Chris. Really appreciate that.
Take a seat.
Take a seat.
I did request him to do that, and I'm glad he did. But yes, also, as I said, guys, it's not just us getting people on here to promote their work. It's also getting us to answer some questions from you guys. So, I thought I'd go onto the group chat on, not group chat, go into the group on Facebook. This is from Rosie from our group. She says, Dan, you are associated with this topic, and I'm also a big fan. So, decompression session. I just won a year's supply of eggs in a raffle. Vouchers. Genuinely the best prize ever. What was your best prize and why?
First of all, a year's supply of eggs.
It's got to be a farmer's raffle, isn't it?
Must be an egg a day.
I would presume it's an egg a day. They wouldn't give like a 6 eggs a day, would it?
Yeah, that's a lot.
That sounds phenomenal. Well done. Congratulations.
Or have you just been given a chicken?
I don't think I've won any prizes, annoyingly.
I won a bottle of Fireball when I was into Fireball. I'm not so much into it now, but on their Facebook competition, they did like a Christmas 24-day countdown thing, and I won the number 1, which was a bottle of Spotify. The rest of it was like key rings and stuff, but just had to share their posts. And yeah, I don't think they knew I lived in England. I think it came from America at the time, so that's my big win. Fireball whiskey.
Well done.
I won a couple of things on Caddy Comps where you buy raffle tickets, and
You did fucking well.
A couple of good wins. I think I won like twice out of very few entries, and that was pretty good. But nothing as fun as eggs, to be honest. I do like that. It's a nice little prize. I would be very happy with that, Rosie. So yeah, very jealous of that. should I just see as well? Because the great thing about the group is they put these in there, and people put what else they've won. So so Charmin Phoenix 89879. Maybe not the real name. Won Robbie Williams tickets.
Whoa.
Nice.
Which is great. Lisa won We Will Rock You, and Brian May made a surprise appearance at the end. That's amazing. I'm very jealous of that. And Nadia once run a bottle of really expensive champagne when she was 12. So I probably could enjoy it. But yeah, I like that. Another one, top contributor, Adam Meaney. He's comments a lot, so thank you, Adam, for all your support. Meaney. I love this one. I'm going to put you guys on the spot. Decompression session idea. What's your favourite joke ever? Mine is super lame, and not really a joke per se, but it's, I used to be a werewolf, but I'm all right. No! And that's actually got a bit... My favourite uncle used to say that jokes, and I always often say it to Catty, so it made me smile when I read that, Adam, so thank you for that. But guys, any jokes that you stick out for you? I mean, we've got some lovely... Lots of replies in there as well, so I can read a couple of them out to you. But do you have any that stand out for you?
One that you used to do that always made me giggle, which was, what did the camp bee say to the bee with scruffy hair? Honeycomb. It's quite good.
And I go, beehive after sometimes, just add a bit of extra onto it. That's what I made that one, Dan. Do you like it?
That's really good, actually. I'm impressed.
Yeah. What did Porky Pig say when he got an omelette? That's all, yolks. Never one I made up. I saw that earlier on. So yeah, that's just two from me. Probably not my favourites, but
pretty good. Pretty
Danny Stevens, how many ants can you fit in a flat? This is good. 10 ants.
I like that one.
I like that one.
Good.
Yeah.
Monica Jenkins, why do scuba divers fall backwards into the ocean? Otherwise, they would just fall into the boat.
Of course.
Very good. Very good.
Logical.
Yep.
This one is a classic. Why did the baker have brown hands? Because he needed a poo. I'll do one more, unless you guys have any extras. This is from Millie. Why do lions get lost?
Don't know, mate.
Because jungle is massive.
Oh, good.
Bad.
There you go.
Fine.
There you go. So some jokes there. Guys, comment down below any of your favourite jokes as well. I'd love to hear them. They can be as terrible as you like. You know what our humour is like. So please do share them. We'd love to have a big back catalogue of all these questions, all these ideas for some decompression sessions. We are talking about doing a little bit of a side thing where we do some lighter stuff, just talking about things. So we'd love to have more material for that. And thank you for anyone that has got involved. Much appreciated. But yes, Ben, is there a cryptic clue for the episode finale, season 13 finale?
I haven't got one for the series 13 finale, but what I have got is an uplifting story. Just a couple of minutes, and it kind of... I know I talked a few episodes ago about Punch the Monkey and Wilson the Rooster, but I wondered if you'd heard about the 7 Dogs of China.
No?
Okay, this is actual news, by the way. This went viral. It's uplifting. There's a happy ending. A group of 7 dogs that went missing in China have gone viral after a video emerged of them walking back home to their village, 17 kilometers away, reuniting with their owners who had been searching for them for days.
Is there corgi leading the way?
There is a corgi, Tom. That's Depang, aka Big Fatty. So a video...
Never go the way. Just led him back to fucking home. And a hero, more like...
Well, the video, it's mobile phone footage first posted online on the 15th of March, shows the unusual looking pack of dogs, including a golden retriever, a Labrador, an injured German Shepherd, and Pekingese. Pekinese. I'm not familiar with the breed. Walking along the highway in Changchun, the capital of China's northeast Jilin province, where temperatures are dropping below freezing overnight. Leading the pack is a corgi, later identified in Chinese media as Depang or Big Fatty. And they'd actually escaped a dog meat farming facility and made it back to their owners. And there's just a very nice video of them walking along. Many of the dogs are guarding the injured German Shepherd, which is an interesting sight to see in itself. And then right at the front of the pack, you've got Big Fatty leading them home. Depang. I think that's the translation.
Wow.
Yeah.
How did they escape?
They jumped out the back of a van. I think that's maybe where the German Shepherd got the injury.
Oh.
Yeah. But as well, 17 kilometres they travelled and they made it home. Bloody lovely.
There's a film to be made in that.
Yes.
Yes.
Definitely is.
That's lovely.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go. The world isn't such a bad place after when they escaped the meat market. So I mean, that's still fucking horrific. So, we'll take what we can. But yes, we'll be back next week with the series finale. And like we've said, we've got lots of exciting things working behind the scenes, which we can't wait to share with you guys. Thank you so much for joining us on this journey through the darkest series ever. I know it's been a lot for a lot of people. A lot of people have the pausings halfway through and you have rests. Look after yourselves. Make sure you guys are doing well. Maybe follow some of Chris's advice there. And why not check out one of his many shows? But yes, guys, thank you so much. And until next time, like we always say,
We say this all the time.
keep doing what you're doing.
Unless. Bloody hell. If Mengele saw him, heterochromia. But I wouldn't let him.
Well, you stand up to him, would you?
No. I wouldn't let him. Don't be a denier.
Yeah,
The
I
Holocaust.
can't. I do not understand the logic. It happened on a unbelievable
Tell you what, if
scale.
you're a denier, message me. DM me.
Ooh, go on.
Come on.
Message him.
Let's have a chat. Let's have a FaceTime.
Dan's trying to find his community. I'm joking. But if there is comments for that, I will. They will be deleted and blocked. Because why not? But anyway, guys,
See you next week.
take care of yourselves. Toodle bit.
Bye bye.